Have you ever felt like no matter what you do, it's never enough? You finish something, a project, a task, even a small personal goal, and instead of satisfaction, there's a quiet voice whispering you could have done better. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. It's lived inside you long enough to sound like truth. Maybe you've stayed up late fixing something no one else would ever notice. Or you've rewritten a message 5 times before sending it, just to make sure it sounded right. Maybe you've smiled after receiving praise, but deep down, you felt like a fraud. Like if people looked closely, they'd see the flaws you spend your life trying to hide. There's a kind of exhaustion that comes from always chasing perfect. It's the exhaustion of never being allowed to rest in your own humanity. You tell yourself it's about standards, about excellence, but deep down it's about fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of being seen in your raw, unpolished form. Perfectionism often hides behind words like discipline, ambition, or drive. But underneath, there's a quieter story. A story about a child who learned that love had conditions, that approval had a cost, and that mistakes were dangerous. This isn't about being too hard on yourself. It's about carrying an invisible weight that tells you your worth depends on your performance. And yet, what if it does? What if all the things you're trying to perfect, the image, the achievement, the spotless track record, were never meant to earn love but to shield you from the fear of losing it? Let's go deeper into that. Let's explore the quiet, relentless force called perfectionism and the truth that might finally set you free from it. Perfectionism isn't just about wanting things to be neat, precise, or impressive. It's not about color-coding your planner or organizing your desk. It's something far more personal, something that quietly shapes the way you move through life. It's like an invisible hand resting on your shoulder, gently but firmly steering you toward an ideal that never actually exists. You might feel it when you look at your work and immediately notice what's missing instead of what's complete, or when someone compliments you and you instinctively deflect it, because deep down, you don't feel like you've earned it. Perfectionism doesn't always look loud or obsessive. Sometimes it's calm, polite, and subtle. It's the smile you wear when you're falling apart inside. It's the apology you give for simply existing in an imperfect way. If perfectionism had a voice, it would sound like a parent who's both proud and disappointed at the same time, always urging, "You can do better." It dresses itself as motivation, but it feeds on your self-doubt. It whispers that every flaw is a threat, every mistake a stain that proves you're not enough. And so you build walls of control. You edit, you refine, you push yourself beyond what's humanly sustainable, all to maintain an image of someone who has it together. Yet beneath that surface lies a quiet ache, the fear of being truly seen, the longing to be accepted as you are, unfiltered and unfinished. Perfectionism convinces you that love and acceptance must be earned. That worth is a prize, not a birthright. It keeps you constantly measuring yourself against others, against yesterday's version of you, against impossible ideals. And when you fall short, as every human must, it punishes you with shame. But here's the truth perfectionism never wants you to realize. You were never meant to be flawless. You were meant to be whole. Wholeness doesn't mean spotless. It means embracing the mess, the mistakes, the process of becoming. When you begin to see perfectionism not as a personality trait but as a protective pattern, something softens. You stop asking, "How do I fix this part of me?" and begin to wonder, "What is this part trying to protect?" That's when healing begins, not in achieving perfection, but in understanding the pain that created it. Perfectionism doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It's learned, shaped quietly in the background of childhood, like a song you didn't choose but memorized anyway. Somewhere in your early life, you absorbed the message that being good wasn't enough. You had to be exceptional to be safe, loved, or noticed. Maybe it started with a parent's sigh when you brought home a grade that wasn't an A, or with praise that came only when you performed well, when you won, achieved, or impressed. You began to associate love with achievement, attention with performance. Your small, developing mind didn't interpret it as "I need to do well." It became, "If I don't do well, I won't be loved." For some, perfectionism grows in chaotic homes, where control feels like the only safety. Maybe there were arguments, instability, or unpredictable moods. So you learned to keep things just right, believing that if you behaved perfectly, maybe everything would stay calm. You became the peacemaker, the fixer, the one who never caused trouble. You silenced your needs to protect everyone else's comfort. Others grew up with high expectations, homes where excellence wasn't celebrated, it was simply expected. You learned early that mistakes weren't lessons, they were disappointments. Over time, you internalized those expectations until they became your own. Even when no one else was watching, that inner voice kept score. Somewhere deep down, perfectionism became your armor. It promised that if you could just be perfect, say the right things, make no mistakes, keep everyone happy, you'd be safe. Safe from rejection, safe from shame, safe from that crushing feeling of not being enough. But that armor came with a cost. It didn't just protect you, it trapped you. It separated you from your natural, messy, spontaneous self, the part that wanted to play, explore, and make mistakes without fear. You began living for approval instead of authenticity. Every success felt temporary, every compliment suspicious. The bar kept moving higher, and no matter how far you climbed, you never felt at rest. Think back to yourself as a child. There was a time you drew messy pictures and proudly showed them to someone you loved. But maybe one day someone laughed or said you could have done better. And that tiny moment, the kind adults forget instantly, buried itself in your psyche. You learned that love could shrink when you weren't impressive, that approval could disappear. And so, perfectionism grew quietly, feeding on those early moments of conditional acceptance. It wasn't born out of vanity or pride. It was born out of fear and longing. The fear of being unloved as you are, and the longing to finally be enough. As you grew older, the world reinforced it. Teachers praised your precision. Bosses rewarded your attention to detail. Society applauded your drive. It all seemed like validation, but underneath, it only confirmed the belief that you had to earn your place. What no one told you is that the person you were trying so hard to become, flawless, composed, unshakable, was never real. It was a survival version of you. A version built to navigate a world where love felt uncertain and safety felt fragile. And maybe, even now, you still hear that old echo from childhood: don't mess up, don't disappoint, don't let them see the cracks. But here's the gentle truth: those cracks were never the problem. They're the places where your humanity lives. Perfectionism didn't start as your enemy. It started as your shield. It was the child's way of saying, "I'll be perfect, just please don't stop loving me." But as an adult, that same shield keeps you from feeling fully alive. To understand perfectionism is to look not at what's wrong with you, but at what happened to you. It's to see a younger version of yourself, trying, striving, aching for love, and to realize they did the best they could with what they knew. And now maybe it's time to teach them something new. Perfectionism is a mask you learned to wear so early, it began to feel like your real face. It helped you survive in a world that didn't always feel safe for mistakes. And for a while, it worked. The mask made you capable, dependable, admired. You became the one people could count on, the reliable student, the high performer, the person who always had things under control. That control became your safety blanket. It gave you structure in chaos, validation in uncertainty. Every flawless result whispered, "See, you're doing it right, you're safe again." And in a way, it was true. Perfectionism protected you from the sting of criticism, from the ache of rejection, from the shame of not being enough. It created a version of you that looked strong, but beneath it all was fragile, because every ounce of worth was tied to never slipping. Outwardly, people saw someone impressive, disciplined, ambitious, meticulous. But inside, there was a quiet tension, a constant scanning for errors, an unrelenting fear of letting someone down. You became a master of concealment, smiling when you felt anxious, saying "I'm fine" when you were crumbling inside. The perfectionist mask doesn't just hide flaws, it hides pain. It hides the small, trembling parts of you that still believe love can be lost with a single mistake. But there's a shadow to this mask. The more perfect you appear, the more disconnected you feel. Because the people who love you, they love the version of you they can see, not the tired one behind the polished smile, not the one who's terrified of failing. So you keep performing, afraid that if you stop, everything will fall apart, your image, your relationships, your worth. Yet deep down, you know something's missing. That no matter how flawless the surface becomes, something inside still aches to be seen, not for your perfection, but for your truth. Perfectionism promises safety, but it also isolates. It gives you control, but steals your freedom. You spend your life editing yourself into something acceptable, but never fully real. You measure, refine, and fix until even joy feels like a task. But here's the paradox. The mask that once kept you safe now keeps you small. It shields you from rejection, but also from intimacy. It protects you from judgment, but also from connection. Because connection, real connection, requires imperfection. It requires being messy, vulnerable, and unfinished. You've been wearing the mask for so long that taking it off feels dangerous. But that's only because it once was. Back then, imperfection felt like rejection. Now, it's the doorway back to yourself. The world doesn't need your mask. It needs your humanness, your flaws, your laughter, your honest confusion. It needs the you that's still learning, still becoming. The mask was your survival, but it's not your destiny. Perfectionism doesn't vanish when you grow up. It just changes shape. It hides in the way you hesitate to start something until you're ready. In the way you overthink before sending a message, or replay conversations in your mind, searching for something you might have said wrong. It lives in that uneasy space between doing well and still feeling like you failed. As an adult, it's no longer about pleasing a parent or earning a teacher's praise. It's about maintaining the image you've built. You want to look competent, composed, unshakable. You hold yourself to impossible standards in your work, your relationships, even your self-growth. You read, plan, prepare, but rarely allow yourself to rest because rest feels like weakness. Sometimes perfectionism looks like procrastination. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right time, the right conditions, the right version of you to begin. But underneath, it's fear. Fear of not being good enough, fear of failing publicly, fear of confirming the suspicion that you were never as capable as people think. It also shows up in relationships. You might find it hard to be vulnerable, afraid to let others see your flaws. Maybe you avoid conflict because you don't want to disappoint anyone. Or maybe you overgive, trying to earn love by being indispensable. You're the one who fixes, supports, and holds everything together, until you quietly collapse when no one's looking. And then there's that heavy, invisible pressure. You wake up already feeling behind. You compare your journey to others and wonder why you can't seem to catch up. Even when you achieve something great, the satisfaction fades fast, replaced by the next goal, the next self-imposed challenge. It's like running a marathon on a treadmill, moving endlessly, going nowhere peaceful. Emotionally, perfectionism leaves you restless. It robs joy from moments meant to be savored because you're too busy scanning for what could be better. It makes you anxious when praised because now you must live up to it. It makes you avoid risks, not because you lack courage, but because you can't bear the thought of being imperfect in public. And so you chase balance, peace, or confidence, ironically trying to perfect your healing too. You read about self-acceptance like it's another skill to master. You try to fix the part of you that always wants to fix things. But pause for a moment. Can you feel how exhausting that is? When was the last time you did something simply because it made you happy, not because it was productive or impressive? When was the last time you allowed yourself to fail gently, to laugh at your mistakes, to breathe without earning the right to rest? Perfectionism convinces you that peace will come once everything is in order. But peace doesn't wait at the finish line. It exists in the messy middle, in the quiet permission to be imperfect and still worthy. The question isn't how to do better. The real question is, can you love yourself even when you do? Healing from perfectionism isn't about lowering your standards or giving up on growth. It's about changing what those standards mean. It's about realizing that excellence doesn't have to come from fear, and that you can care deeply without punishing yourself for being human. The first step is awareness. Notice the voice in your mind that says you're not doing enough. You don't have to silence it right away. Just listen to it with curiosity instead of judgment. Ask yourself, whose voice is this? Sometimes it's not yours, it's an echo of someone from long ago. When you begin to notice it, you create distance. You start to remember that you are not your inner critic. Next, practice gentleness. This may sound small, but it's radical. Gentleness means allowing yourself to do things imperfectly, to write the messy draft, to make a mistake without spiraling, to rest even when the to-do list isn't done. It's giving yourself the same compassion you'd give a friend. Because underneath perfectionism lies self-rejection, and gentleness is the antidote. You can also begin to redefine what enough means. Instead of asking, "Did I do it perfectly?" try asking, "Did I show up honestly?" You'll start to see that authenticity often carries more beauty than precision ever could. You'll realize that people connect with your humanness far more than your perfection. Healing also means learning to sit with discomfort. The discomfort of not having control, of not being the best, of being seen as you are. It's uncomfortable, yes, but it's also freeing. Because the more you allow yourself to be imperfect and still loved, the more your nervous system learns that safety doesn't come from performance, it comes from acceptance. In this process, there will be moments when you slip back into old habits. You'll catch yourself overthinking, rewriting, comparing. That's okay. Healing isn't a straight line, it's a gentle spiral. Every time you notice and choose differently, even in the smallest way, you're teaching yourself a new pattern, one built on trust, not fear. Let yourself celebrate progress, not perfection. Let small victories count. The fact that you're even reflecting on this now means something inside you is ready to rest, ready to stop running. And perhaps the most powerful healing comes from connection, from allowing someone to see the real you and staying, even when you're vulnerable. That moment, when you're imperfect but still accepted, rewrites the story your younger self once believed. It teaches you that love doesn't vanish when you make a mistake. Healing from perfectionism isn't about becoming flawless at self-compassion. It's about remembering that you were never broken to begin with. It's about returning home to yourself, the self who doesn't need polishing, proving, or pretending. The one who was always enough, even before you started trying to be. Take a deep breath. Let it out slowly. Feel the air leave your chest and notice what remains. The quiet hum beneath the noise, the stillness that's always been there, waiting for you to notice it. That's where healing begins, not in fixing yourself, but in remembering that you were never something broken to begin with. You've spent years perfecting the art of being enough. You've chased excellence, controlled outcomes, and measured your worth in achievements. But somewhere inside, the real you has always been whispering, "I just want to rest. I just want to be." You don't need to keep earning your right to exist. You already belong here, not because you've proven yourself, but because you're human. The truth is, you've never needed to be perfect to be loved. You only needed to be present. The cracks you've been hiding aren't signs of weakness. They're proof that you've lived, that you've tried, that you've cared deeply. They're the fingerprints of your humanity, the places where light can finally touch you. Imagine for a moment what it would feel like to stop running, to stop editing your every move and simply be. To wake up and know that nothing you do today can make you more or less worthy than you already are. That you can make mistakes, fall short, take your time, and still be deserving of love, rest, and peace. Maybe healing isn't about striving anymore. Maybe it's about softening, about meeting yourself where you are and saying, "This is enough for now." You don't have to let go of your dreams or your drive. You just have to let go of the fear that drives them. Because true growth doesn't come from pressure, it comes from presence. from doing things not to prove your worth but to express it. There will still be days when the old voice returns, whispering that you should have done more, been more, tried harder. When that happens, pause, smile softly, tell it, I see you, but I don't need you anymore. Then take another breath and move gently forward. You've spent so long trying to become someone flawless, but maybe your real power has always been in your flaws, in the courage it takes to keep showing up even when you feel imperfect, in the quiet resilience of a heart that refuses to close. Let this be the truth you carry. You don't need to be perfect to be worthy. You don't need to perform to be loved. You are allowed to be messy, unfinished, beautifully human, and still enough. And maybe, as you begin to believe that, the world around you will start to feel a little softer too. Because when you finally make peace with your own imperfections, you give everyone else permission to do the same. So take one last breath. Let the mask fall even just a little. You are not your performance. You are not your achievements. You are a living, breathing work of art, unfinished, evolving, and already whole.